How's it going, everyone? So I've spent hundreds of hours grinding various weapons in Battlefield 6, and I think it's about time to bring you the best tier list that includes almost every weapon in the game. If you're tired of being outgunned and you want to know exactly which weapons are dominating right now in Season 2 of Battlefield 6, then this video is for you. So let's jump straight into the video. So right off the bat, we're going to talk about the ARs, starting with the M433. The M433 is easily one of the best close-range weapons in the game. It does have one of the lowest muzzle velocities out of all the assault rifles, and it can be hard to get the recoil under control, but it has a high fire rate, a decent ADS time, and good hipfire accuracy, which makes it super easy to melt enemy players within 30 meters. And with the right setup, you can tighten the bullet spread, which makes it way more viable up to 50 meters. And for that reason, I'm gonna have to put it in the S tier. Next is the B36. The B36 is an insanely good mid to long range option. Its time to kill is a bit slower, up to about 20 meters because of its slower fire rate, but it excels in mid to long range gunfights because it has a high muzzle velocity with the extended barrel, low recoil, and low bullet spread, which makes it very easy to take out enemies at farther ranges. All in all, there isn't a whole lot to say about the B36. It's just a great weapon overall, but because of its effectiveness in closer range combat, I'm gonna have to put it in the A tier. And now we have the SOR-556, or the SCAR. The SCAR has to be one of the worst weapons in the game. Its damage is on par with most other weapons, but it has a very slow fire rate, which makes it one of the few weapons with a 300 plus millisecond time to kill at point blank range. It does have low recoil and bullet spread, which makes it a laser at range, but the lack of damage really kills the effectiveness of this weapon at range, so I'm gonna have to put it in the F tier. Next is the AK-4D. The AK-4D is definitely an underrated assault rifle. It can kill with 3 to 5 bullets from 0 to 120 meters. It also has pretty low bullet spread, a pretty high muzzle velocity, low recoil, and it has a pretty fast time to kill up to 40 meters for a weapon with such a low fire rate. It does have pretty intense visual recoil which can throw players off, but it's pretty easy to get used to. The fire rate is really the only thing that kills this weapon for me, but it's still a great assault rifle all around. And with that in mind, I'm gonna put it in the S tier. And now we have the TR7. This has to be the best assault rifle in the game. It has the fastest time to kill at any range out of every AR, it has fast handling, decent bullet spread, and a pretty fast muzzle velocity. The only thing really holding back the TR7 is its horizontal recoil, which is actually worse than the cord. It's pretty easy to tame the recoil with the foregrip equipped, but the horizontal recoil can still throw players off when tracking players from right to left. So for me, I'm gonna have to put the TR7 in S tier. Next up is the Cord 6P67. In my opinion, the Cord is pretty lackluster when compared to other ARs. It does have the fastest fire rate out of all the assault rifles, which helps it compete with a lot of 3-shot weapons up to 10 meters, but it gets a lot harder for the Cord to compete at range because it needs 6 plus shots to kill. It also has really strong horizontal recoil, which can be hard to get used to since most weapons' recoil patterns are mostly vertical, but with the right build, it's pretty easy to control. But for me personally, I'm gonna have to put the Cord in the D tier. And then we have the NVO. In my opinion, it's a pretty decent assault rifle, but it could be better. It's a 3-shot kill weapon up to 10 meters, so it's very strong in close quarter scenarios, but its damage drops off pretty quick at range, and it kills pretty slow at farther ranges because of its slower fire rate. It also has a lot of bullet spread, which makes it a lot harder to get kills at range when going full auto. But with the right build, you can make the NVO way more accurate at range. And even though this is one of my favorite assault rifles to use, I'm gonna have to put it in the C tier because it's really not that good compared to other 3 BTK weapons in the game. And when it comes to the L85, I honestly think it's one of the most overrated weapons in the game. When compared to other specialized mid-range weapons, it's the slowest killing weapon up to 10 meters. And even in mid-range scenarios, it's the second slowest killing weapon. The L85 is pretty much the same as the SOR-556. It has the same damage model, and it also has pretty low recoil and bullet spread. It does have a faster fire rate, which lets it kill faster than the SCAR, but that isn't saying much. So for me, I'm gonna have to put it in the D tier. As for the VCR, I'd have to say it's also one of the best close-range weapons in the game, even better than the M4A1 and the M433. It obviously isn't gonna kill as fast as 3-shot kill weapons like the SCW or the TR7 in the 10-meter range, but when compared to the TR7, it becomes the second fastest killing AR past 10 meters, with time to kills as low as 200 to 444 milliseconds between 0 and 120 meters. It does have a lot of recoil, which encourages players to use the VCR in close range fights, but with the right build, you can almost completely eliminate the recoil from the VCR. From my experience, it doesn't really have a lot of spread either, so if you can get the recoil under control, you can beam players from surprisingly far distances. And with that in mind, I'm gonna have to put it in S tier. Next, we're gonna jump into the Carbines, starting with the M4A1. In my opinion, it's definitely the best close-range carbine in the game, aside from the SG-553. It has a high fire rate and a pretty decent muzzle velocity, which makes it very easy to beam enemy players up to 30 meters. But it does have pretty strong recoil and a decent amount of spread, which can hinder its usefulness in mid-range combat. Unfortunately, it does have some of the worst hipfire accuracy out of all the carbines, and its damage falls off pretty quick past 20 meters, which solidifies its place as a close-range weapon. But with the right setup, you can still do some real damage up to 40 or 50 meters. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna have to put it in the A tier. Next is the M277. In my opinion, this is easily one of the best mid-range weapons in the game. Just like all specialized mid-range weapons, it has a pretty slow time to kill up to 10 meters, but the M277 has the fastest time to kill out of all mid-range weapons. Its muzzle velocity is a bit on the slower side, which can make it harder to get mid-range kills, and it has pretty strong recoil, but if you can get the recoil under control, you can get easy kills without breaking a sweat. And for me, I think I'm gonna have to put it in the S tier. And now we have the AK-205. This has to be one of the worst weapons in the game. It is one of the few weapons with no bullet spread, and it has really low recoil, but it's a 5 to 8 shot kill between 0 and 120 meters, and it drops to a 6 shot kill past 10 meters. It has the slowest ADS time out of all the carbines, lackluster muzzle velocity, and pretty bad hipfire accuracy. All in all, it's just a waste of a weapon slot, but because of its laser accuracy and lack of recoil, I think I'm gonna have to put it in the D tier. Next is the M417. In my opinion, it's a pretty decent 3 BTK weapon. It lacks any recoil or spread, which makes it one of the easiest 3 BTK weapons to use, but it has the slowest time to kill out of all 3 BTK weapons. Its muzzle velocity is also on the slower side, which makes it a bit harder to get kills at range, but there really aren't any redeeming qualities for this carbine besides that. So for me, I'm gonna have to put it in the B tier. And next is the GRT-BC. In my experience, it seems like a pretty decent close-range weapon, but it's pretty on par with most SMGs past 20 meters. It does slightly more damage than the SMGs past 20 meters, but it's still a 6 to 7 shot kill at that range, just like every other SMG. Its muzzle velocity is also pretty low compared to other carbines, and its hipfire accuracy leaves something to be desired. But the recoil on the GRT is very easy to control, and you can build it to have really fast handling. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna put it in the C tier. And then we have the QBZ. It is a pretty decent carbine, but it's weaker than almost every other close to mid-range weapon in the game because of its fire rate and damage model. It does have a pretty high muzzle velocity, which is useful in mid-range combat, and it has pretty low recoil. But it's definitely one of the weakest weapons in nearly any scenario. And honestly, there's something to be desired about the QBZ. It really could be better. So I'm gonna have to put it in the D tier. And now for the SOR-300. I do think it's a pretty good carbine at close range, but it quickly drops off past 10 meters. It does have a pretty high muzzle velocity when compared to most other carbines, and it isn't very hard to control, but it's practically useless past 10 meters. All in all, there really isn't anything good or bad to say about the SOR-300, I just think it's pretty lackluster overall. So for me, I'm gonna have to put it in the C tier. And for the final carbine, we have the SG-553. The SG-553 is another very strong 3 BTK weapon. It can easily keep up with the TR-7 or the SCW if you manage to outmaneuver players using those weapons, but it does have a noticeable amount of recoil after the Season 2 update. It's still pretty easy to keep the recoil under control in close to mid-range engagements, but it does have a really slow muzzle velocity, which is going to hinder its usefulness outside of close-range combat. But it can be built to have a very fast ADS time, which further solidifies its usefulness in close range. And with all that in mind, I think I'm gonna have to put it in the S tier. And now we can talk about the SMGs, starting with the SGX. I honestly think it's a very powerful close-range weapon. It has a great fire rate and a pretty decent muzzle velocity, but it obviously lacks damage at range. It also lacks any recoil, which makes it a lot easier to control if you need to reach out into further distances, and it has pretty good hipfire accuracy, which helps a lot in close quarters combat. It's also one of the few SMGs that can be built to have a 133 millisecond ADS time, which helps a lot in close range gunfights. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna have to put the SGX in A tier. And then we have the MP5, or the PW5A3. The MP5 is another great close range option with low recoil and a fast fire rate. It also has pretty minimal bullet spread, but it's one of the slowest killing SMGs past 10 meters. It also goes without saying, but it's also pretty weak past 20 meters. It also has the second slowest time to kill between the 10 and 20 meter range compared to other SMGs. But with the right setup, mostly including synthetic tips, it can get the job done in the right hands. So for me, I'm gonna put it in the B tier. And now we have one of the worst SMGs in the game, the PW7, or the MP7. It has one of the slowest time to kills when compared to other SMGs, lackluster hipfire accuracy, and a below average muzzle velocity, even for the SMGs. It does become the fastest killing SMG past the 45 meter range, mostly because of its fire rate, but at that point, you're competing with the likes of the M250, the M277, and the B36. And there's almost no scenario where you're gonna beat those weapons with the MP7 equipped. It does have pretty fast handling, and the recoil isn't very hard to control, but you're gonna have a hard time beating any other weapon at any range. And with that in mind, I think I'm gonna have to put the MP7 in D tier. And then we have the UMG40. The UMG is pretty lackluster at any range. It does have low recoil and pretty low bullet spread, which helps engage in gunfights up to about 30 meters, and it has a pretty good muzzle velocity with the heavy extended barrel equipped, but its slow fire rate puts it at a disadvantage against nearly any other weapon. So I think I'm gonna have to put the UMG in the C tier. Next, let's talk about the USG90. Honestly, this is just another terrible SMG. It's slightly better than the MP7 up to 10 meters, it has the fastest muzzle velocity out of every SMG, and its recoil is pretty easy to control, but it has some of the slowest handling in comparison to other SMGs, and it has pretty bad bullet spread. It does have the best hipfire stats, and just like the MP7, it becomes one of the fastest killing SMGs at 45 meters, but you're just not going to beat any specialized mid-range weapons at that range. So I think I'm going to have to put it in the D tier, right next to the MP7. Now let's talk about the KV-9. In my opinion, this has to be the second best SMG in the game. It does kill with 4 to 8 shots between 0 to 120 meters, but because of its fire rate of 1080 RPM, it's the second fastest killing SMG up to 20 meters. It can also have the fastest ADS time out of all the SMGs with the right setup, and its recoil is insanely easy to control, but its muzzle velocity is one of the worst out of all the SMGs. It has pretty terrible bullet spread and hipfire accuracy, and it doesn't have any good mag size options, which really holds it back, but it's still one of the best close range options in the game. So I think I'm gonna have to put it in the A tier. And next we have the SCW-10. The SCW is easily the best SMG in the game. It has the fastest time to kill in the game, up to 10 meters, it has the fastest ADS time with the right attachments, and it has low recoil and bullet spread. It's also the only SMG that can compete past 20 meters. The only thing that really holds the SCW back is its low mag size in combination with its high fire rate, which can lead to players running out of ammo mid-gunfight if they aren't careful. With that being said, it's still an SMG and it's gonna have a pretty hard time competing past 35 or 40 meters, but I'm still gonna have to put it in the S tier, right behind the M433. And for the final SMG, we have the SL9. This has to be the worst SMG in the game. The SL9 has the second slowest time to kill up to 10 meters, and past that range, it becomes the slowest killing SMG in the game. It does have one of the fastest muzzle velocities out of all the SMGs, and it's not very hard to control. But it has one of the slowest fire rates, a surprisingly slow reload time, and it has some of the worst hipfire accuracy out of all the SMGs, which is something that's pretty crucial for close range combat. And even with a good setup, the SL9 just can't compete with most other SMGs in the game. So I'm just gonna have to put it in the F tier. And now we can talk about the LMGs, starting with the L110. The L110 is pretty much the B36 if it was an LMG. The L110 and the B36 share the same fire rate, muzzle velocity, and damage model, besides the 20 to 35 meter range where the L110 kills slightly slower. Unlike the B36, the L110's recoil is completely vertical, and it's not very strong, which makes it very easy to use in mid to long range engagements. Obviously, since it's an LMG, it's gonna have pretty lackluster hipfire accuracy and ADS time, but with all that in mind, I think I'm still gonna have to put it in the A tier, right next to the B36. And then we have the DRS IAR, which is one of the most versatile LMGs in the game. It has a high fire rate, fast muzzle velocity, fast handling, and low recoil. You can build the DRS for any range and it'll dominate with ease. Unfortunately, the DRS has pretty high bullet spread, and since the DRS is more of an AR LMG hybrid, it doesn't have very high magazine sizes. But for me personally, that's not really that big of a deal, so I think I'm gonna have to put it in the S tier. And next up, we have the M60. The M60 does pretty good damage up to 20 meters, sharing a really similar time to kill with the DRS, but past 20 meters, it quickly becomes the slowest killing LMG in the game. You can give the M60 one of the fastest ADS times out of all the LMGs, and it has one of the fastest reload times with the right attachments, but the M60 has super strong recoil and terrible bullet spread, which holds it back in nearly every aspect when compared to every other LMG. There really aren't a lot of good things to say about the M60, so I think I'm gonna have to put it in the F tier. And now we have the RPKM. I think the RPKM is pretty decent. It has great damage up to 10 meters, low recoil, low bullet spread, and it can be built to have pretty fast handling. Unfortunately, because of its slow fire rate, it's one of the slowest killing LMGs in the game at any range, which holds it back when compared to better mid-range options like the L110, the B36, and the M250. But even with that in mind, I think I'm still gonna put it in the C tier. And then we have the M123K. The M123K is an insanely good LMG. It has the third fastest time to kill at any range when compared to other LMGs, it has relatively low recoil, and a very high fire rate. But it does have a pretty decent amount of bullet spread, and its bullet velocity is on the slower side, which can make it a bit more difficult to get kills at range. But I think I'd still have to put it in the A tier. And then we have the M250. The M250 is one of the weakest LMGs when compared to every other LMG, but past 20 meters, it quickly becomes the fastest killing LMG in the game. The M250 is one of the few weapons that maintains its max damage at any range, which gives it a sub 300 millisecond time to kill up to 120 meters. The M250 also has one of the fastest muzzle velocities and decent bullet spread, but it has pretty intense recoil. That being said, the recoil isn't too hard to control. And with all that in mind, I'm gonna have to put the M250 in S tier. And now let's talk about the KTS. In my opinion, the KTS is one of the most overrated weapons in the game. The KTS does have the fastest muzzle velocity out of all the LMGs, low recoil, and low bullet spread, but it has one of the slowest fire rates in the game, which makes it one of the slowest killing weapons in the game at any range. Honestly, with the KTS, there isn't much to talk about, but because of its low recoil and bullet spread, I'm gonna put it in the C tier. And now we have the M240L. The M240 is one of the best mid to long range options in the game, without a doubt. This LMG jumps between being the second and third fastest killing LMG at range. Unfortunately, it does have pretty slow bullet velocity and a lot of recoil, which makes it pretty difficult to use at range. But with the right attachments, you can eliminate almost all the recoil and bullet spread, which makes it an even stronger choice for mid to long range engagements. So with that being said, I'm gonna put it in the B tier. And for the final LMG, we have the M121. The M121 is the fastest killing LMG up to about 35 meters, but past that range, it quickly becomes one of the slowest killing LMGs, with a time to kill barely slower than the M240. Its muzzle velocity is on the slower side when compared to other LMGs. It also has some of the worst bullet spread out of all the LMGs, and its recoil is pretty wild. But it's still a decent option for mid-range combat with the right attachments. I still don't have the most experience with the M121 yet, so I'm just gonna put it in the C tier. And for this video, I'm gonna skip DMRs and shotguns since DMRs just kinda suck, honestly, and shotguns are obviously pretty broken. So for this last set of weapons, we're gonna talk about sniper rifles, starting with the M2010 ESR. The M2010 is one of the best, if not the best sniper rifle in the game. It has the second fastest fire rate, the fastest muzzle velocity, minimal weapon sway and bullet spread, and the sweet spot is in just the right range for most situations. Its reload speed is pretty slow, but that doesn't matter as much when you're well behind the front lines. And with all that in mind, I'm gonna put the M2010 in S tier. Next we have the PSR. In my opinion, it's a pretty good replacement for the M2010 or the Mini Scout. It has the farthest sweet spot range, and it has low weapon sway and bullet spread. Its fire rate and bullet velocity are slightly slower than the M2010 or the Mini Scout, but it can still shred in the right hands. And with that being said, I'm gonna have to put the PSR in A tier. And for the final weapon of the video, we have the Mini Scout. And in my opinion, the Mini Scout is an overrated sniper rifle. It does have the second fastest muzzle velocity, the fastest fire rate, and a good mag size, but it doesn't have a sweet spot, which kills the effectiveness of the sniper rifle. But honestly, whether you have good or bad opinions about the sniper rifles, you can't deny that they're pretty broken regardless. So I'm gonna put the Mini Scout in the A tier. So that's gonna be it for the tier list. Just to recap, I decided to put the VCR, the M433, the SCW, the SG553, the DRS, the AK4D, the TR7, the M277, the M250, and the M2010 in the S tier, the KV9, the B36, the L110, the M4, the SGX, the PSR, the M123K, and the Mini Scout in the A tier, the M417, the MP5, and the M240 in the B tier, the NVO, the GRT, the M121, the RPKM, the SOR300, the UMG40, and the KTS in C tier, the Cord, the L85, the AK205, the QBZ, the PW7, and the USG90 in the D tier, and the SOR556, the SL9, and the M60 in the F tier. Obviously, these are just my opinions, and some of these weapons may not fit my playstyle, so let me know what you'd change in the comments below. But if this video helped you understand the meta in Battlefield 6, then hit that like and subscribe button for specific weapon builds and breakdowns. I also livestream multiple times a week to test new builds for all these weapons, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss a stream. You should also join my Discord where I share all my favorite weapon builds, discuss gameplay changes, and give tips to improve gameplay. The link for my Discord is in the description, so come tag along. There isn't a whole lot to say besides that, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.